teach here in the English department. I actually graduated from Comet, and then I taught at Comet for 20 years before transferring here to Front 4 years ago, because specifically I wanted to be a part of Writers Week. That tells you how special an event it is here taking place right now. I left my own high school in a place where I worked for 20 years to be here in this auditorium winter after winter. So that said, thank you to our administration for letting us do this year after year. Thank you to the boosters, your own parents and families and adults, for generously supporting the arts here at From. Thank you to the tech crew for making sure we're not silent and in the dark. And thank you to you students for the gift of your attention, which makes it safe for our guests to get vulnerable with their work, and for you to experience the artistic space. Sierra DeMulder, our guest for 6 Hour today, is a poet, an educator, and a podcast host. She's a two-time National Poetry Slam champion who's written 5 books of poetry. I didn't know Sierra's work till I came here to Friend a few years ago, and it is so aching and beautiful. So please welcome to the stage poet Sierra DeMulder.
But I took some time off from my writing career, and I think this is my second year back in 2 years. Anyway, thank you so much for having me. I'm such a big fan of Writers Week and of your administration and of your teachers, and most importantly of all of you. Like the introduction said, my name is Sierra. I am a full-time poet and podcast host. I have been a full-time writer, or like a self-employed creative person, since I was in my early 20s. I'm in my late 30s now, and my career has looked different at different stages. I used to travel full-time as a poet. I would tour. I've performed in over 40 of the 50 states. I've gone on 3 international tours. And that was like so rewarding and really exciting, and that was predominantly with what you would call spoken word. Then I took a break from that writing career to start a family and to start my podcast and whatnot. And then I just recently this summer published my most recent book. So today afternoon, I'm going to, because it's the 30th year of Writers Week, and because I've been thinking a lot about my career and the ebbs and flows of it, I'm actually going to read some of my older spoken word poems, and then I'm also going to read from my newest book, Ephemera. So this is my fourth book. Today Means Amen, and I'm going to read the title poem out of this piece when I find it. Okay. All right. Dear you, whoever you are, however you got here, this is exactly where you are supposed to be. This moment has waited its whole life for you. This moment is your lover, and you are a soldier. Come home, baby. It's over. You don't need to suffer anymore. Dear you, this moment is your surprise party. You are both hiding in the dark and walking through the door. This moment is a hallelujah. This moment is your permission slip to finally open that love letter you've been hiding from yourself. The one you wrote when you were little, when you still danced like a sparkler at dusk. Do you remember the moment you realized they were watching? When you became ashamed of how much light you were holding, when you first learned how to unlove yourself? Dear you, the word today means amen in every language. Today, we made it. Today, I'm going to love you. Today, I'm going to love myself. Today, the box cutter will rust in the garbage. The noose will forget how to hold you. Today, dear you, and I have always meant you. Nothing would be the same if you did not exist. You, whose voice is someone's favorite voice, someone's favorite face to wake up to, nothing would be the same if You, the teacher, the starter's gun, the lantern in the night who offers not a way home, but the courage to travel farther into the dark. You, the lover, who worships the taste of her body, who is the largest tree ring in his heart, who does not let fear ration your love. You, the friend, the sacred chorus of how can I help? You, who have felt more numb than holy, more cracked than mosaic, who have known the tiles of a bathroom by heart, who have forgotten what makes you worth it. You, the forgiven, the forgiver, who belongs right here in this moment. You, this clump of cells, this happy explosion that happened to start breathing, and by the grace of whatever is up there, you got here. You made it this whole way, through the nights that swallowed you whole, through the mornings that arrived in pieces, the scabs, the gravel, the doubt, the hurt, the hurt, the hurt is over today. You made it. You made it. You made it. Here. Thank you. Thank you. So, like I said, I'm going to read predominantly from this newest book, but I'm going to read a couple of my old spoken word poems like this. This new book, it's called Ephemera. Ephemera means something that exists or is enjoyed for only a short amount of time. I wrote this book in the period of life that I took to, stop touring poetically, to start my family, to, fall in love and get married. And during those 5 years, they were the happiest and the most difficult time of my life because of some things that were going on and whatnot. And I thought this title was so suited for the idea that like our suffering is temporary and our joy is temporary and our time here is temporary. So one of the themes in this book, it starts opposite most traditional arcs. It starts in death. The first section is a lot about loss and endings and my grandmother passing. I was privileged enough to experience helping her during hospice time. I was caring for her the weeks leading up to her death and the day of. And that was a profound experience. So there's a couple poems about that. This is called Waiting. While my grandmother waits for death in the other room, her lips cracked as brown sugar, her fingers moving in sleep against the buttons of her nightgown, the women of my family play cards. They forget to eat, cry about past lovers, sort bills and outdated subscriptions. They sit on the floor, taking turns massaging the grief and answering worried calls from friends, clergy, neighbors who sloppily soak the phone with their regret. I should have called earlier, but the holidays, There's a camaraderie among women and death. Both know how to become a vigil, to be busy and still, an usher from one room to the next. One daughter wore the same clothes for a week. One daughter drove through the night. I was wrong. My grandmother isn't waiting for death, instead drifting in and out of a much softer word. It is the living who wait, who count the hours, the morphine doses, the last request for ice chips. It's the living who wait, with their card games and their tears and their own hushed regrets from all the time they had nothing to wait for. So like I said, the first section of this book is a lot about endings, and it made me think a lot about like life cycles and I'm like a spiritually open person. I don't really know what I believe, but randomly somebody, a friend of a friend was like, can I do a sacral chakra reading on you? And I was like, sure, what does that entail? And this person was claiming that they could like access the past energy of past lives in my body and clear it, okay? Don't know if that is what actually happened. But they said they did it. And the best thing was that she was like, okay, I was like, cool, so how are you gonna do this? And she's like, I'll just send you a voice memo over Facebook. And I was like, okay, cool, so you can do it like totally remotely. All right. So like I said, I don't really of reincarnation, like are we, do we get one life and we're done, or is there a place we go, or is there nowhere, or do we do this all over again? But the poet in me loves the metaphor. I love the metaphor that like we could get a chance to try again. So this is a poem about that. The woman told me over voice memos how she cleared my sacral chakra from the trauma of a past life. The womb carries, she said, and we are all heavy with outdated fashions of ourselves. I don't know what I believe. My mother has a reoccurring dream. She is trapped in a dark and human space, dank with the smell of death, urine, one small window cracked too high to reach. She believes this is a memory. One from her life, but not the one she's living. Once, a woman in Britain wrote 70 pages of hieroglyphics in her sleep, detailing her past life as a priestess, and I don't write in a diary because I am afraid of myself. The womb carries, and I wonder what collections it has by now. Carbon footprints, baby teeth, spools of fear in every color, broken dishes and white lilies, all that we are, curated in some illogical museum, all that we are, sifted and passed on in the haze of tracing paper, the ghost of an ink smudge. So says the 2-year-old with uncanny knowledge of World War II aircrafts, who has nightmares of planes crashing into the Pacific. If I am a remake, and this soul, the after image of an after image of a soul new as the first word, tell her I am attempting to free us. Poorly, but stubbornly, I am attempting to let go, if not for us, then for the next passenger. Tell her I am afraid, but I am trying anyway, because what more can we ask of ourselves, now and then, but to race over and over, imperfectly, against time, disease, famine, heartbreak, freak acts of humanity and nature, only to wake up back at the starting line, salvaged and full of hope. Okay. Another theme in this book is my relationship. I'm queer. I'm married to my wife. And fun fact, my wife and I actually dated. I said I'm in my late 30s. Whew, that's hard to say. But we dated when I was 20 and she was 24, and we were like a hot mess, burned brightly and ended in a dumpster fire, the way that you do when you're young and sloppy like I was. But I always thought about her, and we reconnected 6 years ago, and everything worked out. But what I think is interesting is that of the 5 books, I dated her when I was 20. I published my first book when I was 23. So I've been out that whole time since meeting her. But this is the first book that I'm like publicly out in, that I prefer to my spouse, and so that makes it really special to me that I had the courage to use she/her pronouns and to talk specifically about my experience. And there are actually poems about my wife in my very first book, but you wouldn't know it because I hid it behind universal, the you. So this is a poem kind of about that. How to change the pronouns in your love poems. You are 18 and drunk for the first time in the bed of a pickup truck next to a girl you call your best friend, but whose mouth you love to watch move. You are cloudy from swigs of cheap vodka passed around a hormonal fire in the middle of the field, because that's where parties happen in upstate nowhere. You spent the night dancing with her, giggling like arias and squatting to piss together on the outskirts of light until the world started to twist, so the two of you crawled into the truck bed. Somehow, in the haze of liquor and wood smoke, you find her hand and fall asleep watching the stars blur, wondering if she will remember any of this in the morning. Days later, when she starts dating your ex, the first boy who ever loved you, you will glimpse them, holding hands on Main Street, fully awake, in daylight, where everyone can see, and you will feel a shipwreck wash ashore inside you. You will tell everyone you're jealous. You will lie and say of her. Thanks. True story, my high school sweetheart, nice person, nice guy. Once we broke up and like finally were able to be friends again, I was like, I think I have a crush on Caitlin. And he was like, Caitlin. And then he started dating her, like 2 days later. I feel like that's ignorance. That's homophobia. It's not, but it felt like it. All right, but now here's a poem about my actual wife. And it's called Now and Again for W in the first months of our second relationship. Today, while you were at work, I sat at your kitchen table and imagined feeding you dinner. It's a game I play. Paint a portrait of a family with no water or brushes, just strokes of the eye and mind. I am still shocked I get to love you again. Your face, the locket I wore until the patina left a green smudge between my breasts. I measure our time apart, not in days, but in 2 presidents. A birth, a lanyard of bodies, a lanyard of funerals, bodies swallowed like dirt or rolled like bread into the incinerator. The day you dislocated your collarbone in Boston, I paid a stranger in Minneapolis to drag ink-soaked needles across my body. The day you closed on your house, I latticed my first pie crust 1,200 miles away. We almost forgot each other. I fall asleep on your chest now, again. It's familiar drum, a mother singing heard for the first time outside the womb. I love how your body shows me I was gone. That shy crackle of crow's feet, the new scar, the garland of grays haloing your forehead, crocuses sprung from a winter without me. Thanks. So I'm going to do another older spoken word poem. This is probably one of the oldest ones that I still would consider performing in a good way. I want to say a couple things first. So this poem is like content warning. It's about sexual assault, and I wrote it a long time ago, like I said. And when I wrote it, I was really inspired by this article that I read that was about like reclaiming your power, basically. And I was really thinking a lot about like the women's experience when it comes to sexual assault. But obviously, since then, I've come to realize that obviously the idea of who experiences sexual assault, rape, abuse is very broad. It's not something that just happens to women. It happens to men. It happens to non-binary folks, and it can be perpetrated by any of those people. So while I use she, her pronouns in this poem, I want the message to be received as a broader one. We are taught from the moment we leave our pink nurseries that we are collapsible paper dolls, light to hold, easier to crumple. That as women, our worth lives secretly wrapped in lace and cotton panties, our fragility armored with pepper spray and mace. They say 1 in 10, 1 in 6, 1 in 3 women will be raped or sexually abused in their lifetime, and I am one of 3 daughters. Now imagine, each victim is an acrobat. Her sanity a balancing act. Our response is the unfailing safety net. We never expect to see her across the wire. You weren't just violated, we tell her. You are an empty museum, a gutted monument to what used to hold so much worth. And with the best intentions, we tell her to reclaim it. Put a price tag on your rape and own it, but don't stand too tall, don't act too strong, we will name you denial. Come back when you're ready to crumble like your bones are made of chalk. You may only laugh cutely or cry beautifully, so cry beautifully, we will catch you. We are calling it theft, as if he could pluck open your ribs like cello strings, pocket your breasts, steal steal what makes your heart flutter and tack its wings to his wall. Some days you will feel dirty. Some weeks you'll remember just how hard it is to breathe in public, like your heartbeat is climbing to the attic of your throat, only to suicide itself on the pavement. But know this, the person who did this to you is broken, not you. The person who did this to you is out there somewhere, choking on the glass of their chest. It is a windshield and his heartbeat is a baseball bat. Regret this, regret this. Nothing was stolen from you. Your body is not a hand-me-down, and there is nothing that sits inside you holding your worth. No locket that can be seen or touched, ripped from your stomach to be left on the concrete. And I know it's hard to feel perfect when you can't tell an Adam's apple from a fist, because some ashtray of a man picked you to play his Eden. But I will not watch you collapse. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to do another oldie about someone who I used to love. How many people here have a crush on somebody who and is unrequited? Unrequited, like not reciprocated. Or like maybe you have a crush on them and they're not like making the relationship be what you want it to be. Yeah, okay, it sucks. So I was in love with one of my best friends in my early 20s for like 5 years, and we did this like Ross and Rachel back and forth crap forever. And then I started a podcast about relationships and realized that he ain't shit. Okay, so this is on watching someone you love somebody else. You will be out with friends when the news of her existence is accidentally spilled all over your bar stool. Respond calmly, as if it was only a change in weather, a punchline you saw coming. After your 4th shot of cheap liquor, leave the image of him kissing another woman in the toilet. In the morning, her name will be in every headline. Car crash, robbery, flood. When he calls you, ignore the hundreds of ropes untangling themselves in your stomach. You are the best friend again. He invites you over for dinner, and you say yes too easily. Remind yourself, this isn't special. It's only dinner. Everyone has to eat. When he greets you at the door, do not think for 1 second you are the reason he wore cologne tonight. In his kitchen, he will hand feed you a piece of red pepper. His laugh will be low and warm, and it will make you feel like candlelight. Do not think this is special. Do not count on your fingers the number of freckles you could kiss too easily. Try to think of pilot lights or olive oil, not everything you have ever loved about him, or it will suddenly feel boiling and possible and so close. You will find her bobby pins lying innocently on his bathroom sink. Her bobby pins. They look like the wiry legs of spiders, splinters of her undressing in his bed. Do not say anything. Think of stealing them, wearing them home in your hair. When he hugs you goodbye, let him kiss you on the forehead. Settle for target practice. At home, you will picture her across town, pressing her fingers into his back like wet cement. You will wonder if she looks like you. If you are 2 bedrooms in the same house, did he fall for her features like rearranged furniture when he kisses her? Does she taste like wet paint? You will want to call him. You will go as far as holding the phone in your hand. Imagine telling him all the unimaginable things, like you are always ticking inside of me and I dream of you more often than I don't. My body is a dead language and you pronounce each word perfectly. Do not call him. Fall asleep to the hum of the VCR. She must make him happy. She must be his favorite place in Minneapolis. You are a souvenir shop where he goes to remember just how much people miss him when he's gone. Thanks. I love the fact that that poem is on the internet somewhere, and there's a comment in the comments that says like, but really, who owns a VCR anymore? living in the past. And I don't know what is a bigger drag, the fact that I owned a VCR at that time, or that I was like, barking up the wrong tree. Okay. So bouncing back to my book, 55 is the end. 55 is the end of the period. Thank you. Okay, so back to the poems about my grandmother. Like I said, it was a really humbling experience to care for her during hospice time, and but it's also I don't want to. I feel like in life we distill hard things down into black and white. Like when somebody passes, we say like, oh, they're at peace now or whatever, which they are, and also that doesn't mean that their passing wasn't filled with hardness, or like we just have a hard time like feeling multiple emotions at once. So I wanted to read two poems back to back. These poems are both true. They're both what happened during this time caring for my grandmother. But I'll read them back to back with no break. If she were an animal. My grandmother moans in pain like a woman in labor, except the woman is sick, so the wails are less the siren and more the reticent opening of an old door. She gestures at her side for the 100th time. Here is where it hurts, and we can do nothing but tell her again and again that the morphine will work soon. We are the rich, dropping lint into the open, wanting hands of the needy, throwing tears into brine, her organs loud in the room, workers who have done but one job their whole lives only to be laid off, her bleating, the kind of sound I imagine trees make inside when cut for lumber. It seems no amount of narcotic can catch up to the pain. Hour after hour we hover, 5 women with useless hands trying to siphon poison from a snake bite, but the whole body is a wound. The whole world becomes my grandmother's wailing, so we can do nothing but swear and pace and rub her forehead and chest and arms and allow her to squeeze the hurt into us, knowing all the while, if she were an animal or even the worst of criminals, she would never have to suffer like this. Hours before dawn. I read Mary Oliver poems to my grandmother, my feet propped on the childlike railing of her hospice bed, my thighs turning to pincushions until my voice is hoarse, not nearly as dry as the graying woman beside me, being taken slowly, not by cancer, though it has been cruel, but by the steady hardening of dehydration. I read about black bears, sticky with honey and roses, their expanding faces unfurrowed by such living frivolities like fear or importance. I must tell you, every poem is about death when you are reading to the dying. Even common words shrug off their working clothes to reveal their true evening desires. Occasionally, my grandmother raises a spotted hand and asks me to repeat a line as though it were a sunrise or a candy she wishes to savor just a bit longer. Mary Oliver once wrote 3 poems about her dying friend, but they were really more about what particles on earth were shifted or repurposed when that soul was called home. Do we just stop, like the hard click of a cassette player, or do we close our eyes for a moment, only to open to new scenery, a new but familiar form, like a mama fox, or one of her kids, or a snowdrift yawning over a field? Her eyes are closing now, so I soften my voice to water. My breath slows, deepens, a stream becoming a river. My final words, barely a whisper. Without opening her eyes, my grandmother says, "You're drifting away, or maybe I am." I think it's both of us, I say, and then her sleep is real. Thanks. Okay, this is a poem I wrote for somebody's wedding, for my friend Kate and Sydney's on their wedding day. They requested that the poem included something about Halley's Comet, which is a comet that comes around in orbit to be seen here on Earth every 42 years. And they happened to see Halley's Comet like within the first couple months of them dating. So they wanted to reference that. In 42 years, when Halley's Comet returns to dance around the Earth once more, and we now pass the time complaining about too loud music or too little Social Security, and the years we spent mothering chickens, babies, dogs have long been replaced by water aerobics, when our joints creak and sigh like old rocking chairs and our skin wrinkled into a topographical map, each vein a river, each age spot the summit of a mountain I have kissed or climbed, when our bodies no longer incite that lust-filled hunger, but instead the feeling of being full, being home. When our days thin like dough rolled under our fingers and the blush of our youth have been called home for supper, when we are old, not just in years but in newness, when there is nothing more to find out about each other, together so long I could paint your face in the dark, recite from memory the way your breath untangles itself from the day as you sleep in 42 years, when Halley's Comet comes again to yawn her coy song over our backyard, I will take your hand, lean into your sagging neck and whisper, I told you so. I told you I would love you this long. But if some cruel cackle of the universe, I am not there to squeeze your hand. If the earth takes me before the sky has the chance to prove me right, my darling, I'll still love you when I am bones, when I am air, when I am made only of stars. Okay, so my wife and I have a beautiful baby girl who's going to turn 2 in April. But we had a hard time getting pregnant, not just because that's not how it works. Thank you to the adults. I experienced an ectopic pregnancy in 2021, which is basically when an embryo gets caught in your fallopian tube and it's no longer viable as a pregnancy, and I had to have emergency surgery, and it was a lot. I had this like post-grieving period where life had sort of slapped me in the face about what I wanted, and grief is funny. It comes out in such funny ways, and this is a poem about how it came out in surprising ways, because I didn't think I would be so sad, I guess. It's called We're Having a Baby. We're having a baby, she says, and you swore you would never be like them. The woman on the blogs and the message boards who talk about skipping their own sister's shower or canceling plans with friends who only know how to talk about their kids. Or the one woman who confessed to screaming at the drugstore cashier who was handing out roses on Mother's Day. No, I'll never be like them, you thought, until you found yourself sitting across the table from a beaming couple. And you cough your congratulations, flimsy as gauze, and you mean it. Of course you mean it. But you never thought you'd be that woman, jealous as a toddler, made stingy by grief. Tell the readers it was you at the drugstore who saw the bucket of roses, individually wrapped like syringes, 100 tiny dancers blushing proud after their first recital. And it's not true, is it? You didn't scream after all. And that, too, is a part of your story, the silence of it, being offered something blooming and saying, no, not me, not yet. Okay, so we ended up getting pregnant months later, and now we have a beautiful baby girl, and that's exciting. And I think something that you will learn, or you already have learned about life, is that as equally good as it is, it can also devastate you. And upon getting married and losing our first pregnancy in such a traumatic way. My wife and I felt so happy to be madly in love, and we also felt fragile. Life made us feel vulnerable. And I'm about to read a poem about marriage, but it's really not about marriage. It's about that's the Trojan horse of the poem. The poem is really about saying yes to life despite the guarantee that it's going to be hard and it's going to be over at some point. So this is a poem about that. It's called New Vows. And I reference a best friend in it, and they're standing right over there. It's Sam, and this is all true about Sam's wedding, that I must say. When my best friend got married, he walked down the aisle to a song about death. Isn't that what marriage is all about, he laughed, a promise to be together until one of you dies? I regret my wedding vows. Too focused on the benign, our boundless laughter, how I cherish just waking up together. I should have said, I take thee and all the treachery that aliveness guarantees. I should have said, I will help bury your elders. I'll take your hand and your heart murmur, the cancerous growth above your father's ear. I take your family history of alcoholism and give you back a possible covenant of dementia, miscarriage, high blood pressure, in sickness and in car accidents, in sickness and in the mundane, shared calendars and anniversaries spent arguing about our budget. You told me once that Great Danes have a short life expectancy, only 6 to 10 years if you're lucky, and I cried, who would sign up to love something so impermanent? Oh, beloved, we have been so happy lately it's making us nervous. And isn't that what marriage is all about? A love so darling, so hallowed and exposed, we both volunteer to be its keeper when the joy runs dry, when the body fails, not because, but in glorious spite of the unpalatable, impossible fact that someday one of us will wake up first, only to find ourselves alone. This was written at a time in my life when I was really struggling, and I had like a hard season. I was going through like a terrible relationship and a breakup. I was living alone. I was feeling really lonely, and I was feeling like all of the messaging that I was getting from the world was like, healing is pretty, and like you have to like buy something and look cute while you do your self-help work or whatever. And that's like not how I felt. I felt like really sad and I don't know, dirty or something. And I just didn't feel like Instagrammable. I didn't feel picture pretty during it. So is anybody else having like a hard season or a hard day or a hard like life? Yeah, thanks. So this is for you then. And then I'll take some questions. If you were to ask the world, which is to say the internet, what self-care looks like, it would tell you candles. Lots and lots of candles. Stationed around your bathtub in a winking flower crown, flickering in the corner of your perfectly angled social media post captioned #MeTime, it would tell you it's sipping tea, not coffee, in a color-coordinated mug at dawn, a mug that probably costs like $70 now because of inflation and those stupid, what are they called, Stanleys? Or they would tell you it's doing yoga outside at dawn, or writing a gratitude list outside at dawn, or even knowing what the heck dawn looks like. It would tell you it's drinking your weight in water. It's buying a new set of sheets. It's a gym membership. It costs money. It doesn't spill or stain or fray. It would tell you nothing about how hard you have to cry to break a blood vessel, or what it's like to order takeout again, a whole pizza you can't afford, to eat alone in your bed like a slow eclipse, the box always in your bed, your body always in your bed, not a grave, but somehow still a burial. What it's like to choose between paying for your cell phone bill or the water bill, knowing you drown yourself in both, endlessly scrolling, soaking up 1,000 lives before you even get up in the morning. What it's like to be so lonely you dream in sitcom characters, Fantasize about your ex, the one who treated you so poorly you might as well let him screw you over one last time. Do a quick Google search. See how trendy healing looks these days. Thousands of shareable images over well-curated mantras pasted over a postcard of the Rocky Mountains. I am enough. The truth is, I look nothing like this. The truth is, sometimes self-care is wanting to text the person who hurt you, but instead letting your phone die. Sometimes it's falling asleep in the afternoon and waking to a lake of darkness. Sometimes it's showering without sitting down in the tub, letting your legs do what they were made for. Sometimes it's making it to the job you hate on time because you have to, because you've got bills to pay and your boss doesn't care if you need to #center yourself. These days, self-care seems to come with a price tag and a filter. Healing is so rarely so photogenic, nor is it one size fits all. And I know, as a poet, I'm going to have to pay some sort of poetic severance tax for how cliche that line is, but I'm sick of prioritizing what's pretty over what's true, which is to say it's been a hard year, which is to say I hid myself from you because I was afraid that the mess would disgust you, which is to say this spring I let the lawn grow long. I let the sun forget me. I ate that whole damn pizza myself. I went for walks, cried the whole time, and took a picture of nothing. I found the box cutter again, renamed it a cancer, starved the desire to die from my body, let the laundry stay swallowed in the hamper, ignored the dishes in the sink, and I need you to know there was mold. None of it was pretty. Healing is a baby's first word. No one really taught them what to say. They just picked up what they could, made it up as they went along, and whatever we do, however we get to that next day, is just as valid as the glittery veneer we've been taught to hide under. I did buy candles, though, from Target. The ones that are out of season and half off, that smell like pine and cinnamon and chemically engineered ocean. And isn't that self-care? Giving yourself permission to believe in seasons? Thank you. Okay, we've got 4 minutes left. Before I take some questions, I just want to say I have books for sale up here. You can also buy my books online or at your local bookstore or whatnot. You can follow me at Sierra de Mulder. And you can listen to my podcast, Just Break Up. Do you have any questions? Yes. Thank you. Tips? Okay, so tips for public speaking, specifically in poetry, I would say record yourself tonight and listen to it because we speak 10 times faster in our head, like we speak faster than we should. So pace yourself, write on the top of your paper, slow down, take your time. That's what I say on my set list. And enjoy yourself. You know, I know that stage fright is real, and I know that public speaking, you know, people are more afraid of death. No, they're more afraid of public speaking than they are of death, which is wild. But I like to remember that it's just a moment in time. I'm just talking to you, and it's going to feel great when you're done. Yeah. Yes. How did I identify my queerness? I think that it was a long journey, but I mostly just followed who I felt excited to be around, you know what I mean? And then from that, I was like, okay, so society gives us labels like bisexual or queer or whatever, and I think I grappled with what those were for me, and now I just use queer because it's like an umbrella term, and it doesn't have as much stigma as bisexual or whatever. But it was really just like you know, I was never like, I'm gonna be gay today. You know, it was like, wow. I remember, true story, the first time I ever saw my wife, I was in a Walmart and I saw her in the other aisle with her then girlfriend, and I was like, I'm gonna know you. I'm gonna know you. And I followed her and didn't say anything because I chickened out. And then the next week, I went into a job interview and she was behind the counter, and that's how we connected. So it was just about following and not listening to what you think you should and should not do. Yeah, go ahead. Advice to find your voice in writing. I think consume, read a ton of writing, even though a lot of people are afraid that it will affect you. but it allows you to discern what do you like about what this writer's doing, what do you not like about what this writer's doing, and then you're like, okay, I want to emulate this in my writing. So the more you read, the more your palette expands, and then practice, and then figure it out. And it's okay to try our own style. You know what I mean? And then work it out. Yeah. Any other questions in the last 2 minutes that we have? Yes. Hey, thank you so much. How do I come up with the metaphors? I'm a very visual thinker, and so I think that's the foundation of a good metaphor is something you can picture. So obviously when I'm thinking like, okay, what's the